What is going on today, guys? We got some cleaning done this morning so far. All right, here is where we are at. The Jeep is somewhat getting put back together. All the hardware is put back on the doors. Hinges are realigned. Windows are put back in, window trim. All the hood stuff is put back on. The quarter armor is fully installed now. Tail lights are back in, so all I got left to do back here, I'm gonna tint that backup light. I don't know, it looks weird. But anyway, today we're gonna get back to some welding and stuff. We got more wire. We are working rock crawler. So part of what we're doing is finding out what parts of the Evo kit will work with the next venture kit. Clearly the long arm kit did not. So hooking up with rock crawler, because their stuff does. And we're in the process of getting their 3-link rear and the 4-link long arm put in. So again, that's why the axle is completely out. We got all the rear bracketry cut off and touched up and everything. That is where we will be welding on the bracket for this side. We got to finish welding on the other side, and then we'll get underneath to weld the link for the bracket for the 3rd link. And then we got to start chopping on the bracketry on the axle. That's going to be fun. So I'm going to get some stuff pulled out of the box for bracketry that we're going to need to be welding on. We'll take a look at that. I'll get that other side burnt in. It's going to be some time-lapse stuff for the welding parts, and we'll see where we get to today. So hang on. All right, those brackets are welded on. The next bracket is our 3rd link bracket. So we get this opened up. And then what we're gonna have to do is grind some of the finish off of both ends to get it prepped for welding. Then go under the Jeep, grind some of that off for welding. Then we're gonna have to measure between frame rail so that we get this end gets lined up with this hole. There's a hole in the cross member on the Jeep, so you just line those two up. The rear one, you need to measure from side to side of the Jeep, find the center, and then make sure this is centered, and that will be shooting straight down the Jeep then. So we're gonna get the little grinder out, grind these two, and then we'll go underneath the Jeep and get ready to grind under there. So let me grab that. All right, now we'll go underneath and get grinding under there for a second. All right, so we have everything ground down, marked, and the bracket held into place. So now we're gonna get a couple of tacks on each end before we burn this in. All right, so tacked in, get some stuff out the way. Okay, we're back. We are now on to the rear axle. So here is what we need to do. First things first. is we have to measure from this hole to something so that we know where this hole is in space. You are gonna cut off, this bracket, so don't measure to that. You're gonna cut off this bracket, so don't measure to that. And you're gonna cut off to this bracket, so don't measure to that. So your choices are either somewhere on this or to the end of the axle. I'm gonna measure from out here up to here. We will remember that, write that number down so that when we go to weld the new track bar bracket on, we know where to put that. All right, I am gonna get the plasma cutter out because we're gonna need that. Grab a tape measure again, and we'll get ready to start cutting. Okie dokie, 15 1/8. That's what we got. All right, so we are gonna get chopping things off here. This is a track bar relocation bracket, so it's got the factory track bar, another track bar, and I actually welded these two together, so I'm gonna have some different cutting that I'm gonna have to do. But we'll get chopping. Hey guys, welcome back. We are going to continue on the axle. So where I left off last weekend was I was getting ready to start chopping all the brackets off the rear axle, and my plasma cutter was dead. So got a new plasma cutter. It's actually the same one that I had before, only because I had a bunch of consumables left for it. So we're going to get going cutting all these brackets off. Goal today is to have all the new brackets welded onto the rear axle and it slid back underneath and arms put on. That's our goal. So I'll probably throw you on some time lapse. We'll jump back and forth. You'll get some live, you'll get some time lapse. Again, shout out to Krawler for hooking us up with this stuff. Yeah, excited to get out to Moab and see what it's like with this ride. All right, we'll get going. All right, guys. Sorry, thought it was on time lapse. It recorded about half a second. But horse pressure was there. Okay, that's off now. So I have an Artec truss on my axle. What I would like to do is keep the truss where it ties into the pumpkin and tie it into this bracket. So I'm gonna try to figure out if I can just like cut the top and how much of this I have to cut off, if I have to cut my tie down anchors off. So that's what I'm gonna work on now, but we got everything else cut off, ground down. So we're ready to weld brackets on there. This will be interesting. All right, guys, so we are ready to start getting this bracket welded on. So we got all the other brackets cut off. Ready to weld. How this bracket gets put on. You don't want to put this on backwards. So, open side needs to face the front of the vehicle. And then this gets centered on the axle, which I already did and marked. Now it comes with this alignment tool off of the differential cover. If you have an aftermarket diff, they're thicker, so you need to compensate whatever this thickness is over the thickness of the factory diff cover. Luckily, I still have the spacer that came with this, actually the diff skid, which I didn't need because I ran their diff cover, but this is the difference. So what I'm going to do is set this piece here, and that piece like such. So that is exactly where it needs to be welded. It's on both marks on both sides. So we'll get the welder brought over here and get this tacked in first, and then we'll start welding. I did that truss kit, it was welded on this side, but because the locker piece here, there was nothing for it welded to here. There was like maybe a 1/4 inch of weld down here, but I could literally take that and just flop it. So I cut the front one, or I guess the back one off. The front one is on there, and I did get that cut so I can weld this bracket to what's left of that truss kit, and then I'll still basically have somewhat of a truss on this axle. So I'm gonna get the welder brought over and get this tacked in. All right, so we are ready to get this tacked in. All right, now we're gonna start getting this thing burnt in. All right, I'm gonna finish burning this in and be back. All right, so here we are. We have the driver's side. So I have this propped up for kind of easier welding on the back side, and then I'll flip it around the other way. But this is how that alignment tool goes on. So the bend goes to the outside. And then when we do the other side, this bolt will go in this hole. But this touching the bracket here, run through, and then just make sure this is tight up against here. And then you'll start tacking in and then do a full burn. So there we are. Alrighty, so we are burnt in on control arms mounts. We also got a track bar mount welded in. So again, you're going to want to duplicate your measurement where you took it originally, and make sure it's parallel. Get that welded in. So now I'm going to let this cool, and while I'm letting it cool, I'll get the 3 arms and the rear track bar set to length. Obviously the arms are going to set to what they recommend to start, and then the track bar we will match to what the old track bar was set to. So that's what we'll start on next. Okay, we are all painted. So we're letting that dry a little bit. We're going to start getting the arms and track bar sent. English. Set. Again, anti-seize on the inside thread so that Loctite on the jam nuts when we get them set. So I'll get these set off camera. Instructions have where to start. That's what I did with the Evo ones too. I actually set them to length and then made them a touch longer. So I'll probably do the same thing with this kit. But I'll get all these set. Track bar set to what the old track bar was. And then once we get that done, I'll get the axle. It's close to rolling back underneath there. And then I'll bring you guys back when we start putting bolts in. All right, we are ready to attempt to roll this under the Jeep. All right, we're that far. I'm gonna get the top arm put on, and then we'll come back and start working on the bottom arms. All right, so we are free hanging. We got the 3 arms on, and then I put the limiting straps on just so I can get the dolly out from underneath it. So that's where we're going to leave it for today. I'll come back tomorrow, I'll get the track bar put in, start getting everything hooked back up. I am missing the 2 brackets for the brake lines. So I'll call Krawler one day, get those sent out, but we'll be able to get everything. I'm not going to put the coilovers in because I don't want to be welding right next to them, but we'll get those put on. We're getting close back here, so we'll see you in the morning. All right guys, welcome back. All right, here is where we are this morning. So I went through And rear check bar is on. I'm just going through and torquing everything up right now. Getting the emergency brake lines put back in. I'm not going to get the regular brakes put on yet because I need those 2 brackets. I don't want to weld around the gas or the brake lines, so I'll wait till those are welded on before I put those in. Get the jam nuts torqued down, and then I'm going to start trying to get a few pieces put back together of the skids. I have not decided yet if I am going to do the fronts before EJS or wait till I get back. But yeah. So seriously, go check out Krawler. Amazing product. Everything went together smoothly. Instructions were pretty smooth. There's a couple things I had to Google. But awesome stuff. Go check them out, rockkrawler.com. Yeah. Till the next one. Thanks for watching.